after that, I'll try to take a question and answer to the best of my abilities. But before all that, I hope you all are doing very well and fine and safe at home and doing well. So let's start the session. All right. The topic, as Himanshu said, is role of kinetic chain in functional training. Now, what is functional training is all about? Now, when we talk about function, it is about day-to-day activities, your daily activities. It's related. For an athlete, your training should be specific to your movements. For an individual who's working in an office or individual homemaker, the exercise should be pertinent to their activities. What do they do at home? Now, how do kinetic chain works? Now, what is kinetic chain? Kinetic chain is all about production of movement, okay, and structural integrity and alignment. So when we talk about posture, when you talk about how you're moving your body, that is what signifies kinetic chain. Now, for example, if you're just walking on the road, where how the load's falling into each of your joints, the muscles, how it is working, that thing, that structural alignment, the key thing here, key word here is structural alignment, because this structural alignment is known as a posture. And how you describe how your posture is moving around is known as kinetic chain. Now, in terms of kinetic chain, we focus on three key components. I hope you are all able to see the slides here. So when you talk about kinetic chain, we have functional anatomy, which is muscular. When we have articular, which is your joints, and then neural. Now, these three has to work in tandem for a movement to occur properly. For example, you have a tightness of muscle. The muscle is not able to take a load during that movement. So the load, extra load goes into your joints and the neural pathway. So the kinetic chain become unaligned. So that's where the structural efficiency and the functional efficiency of that movement gets affected. Now, why as a physio and as a trainer, it is important to know kinetic chain is most of the people who come to our gyms or our centers, they are not aware of how a body should move. Now, what we have to understand is a human brain does not control individual muscle. They control the whole movement. So when movement is involved, it means muscles, joints, and neural pathway. So all three of those can get affected when you're talking about any inefficiency of a movement, and which could lead to a structural dysfunction or even a movement dysfunction. So during the course of this session, I will be repeating these words, the kinetic chain and structural efficiency. So when we talk about kinetic chain, it is muscular, articular, and the neural pathway. So all these three work in tandem to create a cycle and handle injuries throughout your career. Okay, person as well. Let's start with the cumulative cycle injury. When you start with tissue trauma could lead to an inflammation, and those inflammation can lead to and spasm can lead to an addition, then it could lead to muscular imbalance. And muscular imbalance we are seeing here it is a will this tissue trauma inflammation job to focus. But what we are treating here is a symptomatic, we are not focusing on the root cause. Now, why the root cause, why this has happened? Now, when you talk about that, the why injury has happened, you need to focus on the muscle imbalance. That's where I call the physios are the best, the guide to injury prevention, because when how you handle injury imbalance is to have a corrective exercise plan in place. And who better than the physiotherapist to do that? Now, many of us have gone into an alternative career mode as trainers. I'm one among them because I had passion towards this industry. Being a physiotherapist has helped me a lot to understand how an injury happens. Because we as a physio have a foundation of biomechanics as well as basic anatomy foundation. So when a client comes to you, it is very important to have a functional training screening to be done. Through the slides, I will show you about what all the screenings. But the major thing to cut down this vicious injury cycle, it is very important to not just focus on the symptoms of inflammations and treat them, but to focus on the muscular imbalance. Now, I have been working with athletes as well as bodybuilders or general public. Now, the key component in every training when we talk about them is to have a symmetry in training. We like take for example bodybuilders. They all like to work upon their major muscles as biceps or abs, or you want to have your six pack, or have those legs, but they don't work on their opposite muscle, and that could lead to asymmetrical. So when asymmetrical happens, remember going back into the kinetic chain again, there will be a tightness of muscle. So the additional load on the joints and neural pathway will happen. So many of these bodybuilders, once they retire or even during the course of their competition, they come to us saying, showing a lot of injuries. I had the chance to work with the Bodybuilding Association, IBBF, and you would not believe that close to 70 to 80% of them have some or other kind of injury. They may not be high intense injury, but still they could lead to various, serious stress on the joints. So what happens is that could lead to muscular dysfunction. So again, this unaligned kinetic chain has to be cut down, and we need to focus on the muscular imbalance. As a physio, or I call the physios as prehab specialists, not just rehab, prehab specialist, because we focus on the corrective exercise plan. Now, what happens, what to look for in a movement? What should we look for? The key components, two components, like I said earlier, is a structural efficiency and a functional efficiency. Now, what is structural efficiency? It's an alignment of musculoskeletal system, which allows the posture to be balanced in line of one center of gravity. Now, as a human being, we are made to move around. As an athlete or a general public, homemaker, office goer, we move a lot. So when we move, our center of gravity constantly changes its base. Now, if we are able to maintain our efficiency, the structural efficiency, during the period of movement, that is when a proper movement occurs. Now, what happens when this structural efficiency gets affected? It starts putting load on other paths like muscle or neural pathway. Now, if a structural efficiency is good, it could lead to a functional efficiency, which is the ability of neuromuscular system to perform functional tasks. Now, with the least amount of energy, your efficiency means when you spending lesser energy and getting the best out of it. Now, coming back again here, if any one of these things are getting affected, the muscular system gets affected, there is an additional load happening in the articular surface or in neural pathway. The whole efficiency thing gets affected there. So there is no structural efficiency because the additional stress happens. Now that could lead to functional inefficiency. The movement which we are supposed to happen with low stress, those movements doesn't happen. So these are the issues which we face among the clients when they first come to our gyms or our centers. Now, the key thing as a corrective exercise specialist is to understand or to find out this, the functional efficiency of every movement and the structural efficiency as well, because these will prevent the cumulative traumas which we looked at earlier, muscle imbalances, and ultimately decreased performance. Now, what does happens here? Now, when a movement happens, the kinetic chain automatically gets activated during functional movement. And the movement is controlled by your brain. Okay, like I said earlier, your brain does not control one single muscle. So if I'm doing a biceps flexion, the brain does not just control the biceps movement, it controls also the triceps. So the whole movement is controlled or influenced by the brain. That is why it's called a functional movement. But for an efficient movement to happen, it is important to ensure that the right muscle contract at the right joint with the right amount of force at the right time. That is what is called an efficient functional movement. And that would allow the movement to happen correctly over a period of time. And when that happens, the chances of injuries reduces. Now, I mean, I will not say injury will never happen because that is not possible. You do end up injury, but the incidence of injury would reduce considerably when your movements are very efficient. Now, if any component of kinetic chain is dysfunction, like for example, let's take tight muscle, weak muscle, or neural pathway is altered, it could often lead to altered reciprocal inhibition. If you remember your biomechanics, it's a process where a tight muscle causes decreased neural pathway to antagonist. For example, if my biceps is tight, what happens is the neural pathway to the triceps is reduced. So the triceps muscles will go into weakness. So I see this a lot among people who focus unilateral movement. So the functional movement is all about multi-directional or multiplanar movement. But when we come to unilateral movement, we see all this altered reciprocal inhibition a lot. So a client will complain of muscle tightness in their biceps, and the triceps will go into weakness. So your muscle will always be in a flexed mode, mostly, and that could lead to increase in injury. Now let's look at another issue. What we look at when there is an injury is a synergist dominance. When there is a compensatory movement happening, okay, by the prime mover, the prime mover is not strong enough to push that movement, then what happens is the synergist takes over that movement to happen. Now that could often lead to, again, movement dysfunction. How it happens is, one of these examples you can look at it is a synergist dominances. When you look at low back pain, it often happens when synergist muscle takes over the function of a weak or inhibited prime mover. So you could look at this image, you would see that the weak gluteus muscle, and when there is an overactive or tight hip flexor muscle, and there is a weak gluteus muscle, that is the opposite antagonist muscle, that could lead to the injury or low back pain. So as a corrective specialist or a corrective exercise specialist, my job is to do a differential diagnosis, not just to look at the symptoms of low back pain and treat them. I would find out what sort of muscles are tight, what sort of muscles are weaker, and work around them. And that would help you to treat the synergist dominance. So if during this course of slides, if you guys have any doubts, you can please write it down, and I would, at the end of the session, I would take your doubts, and I'll hope that I could clear them as well. Now, let's look at the postural distortion patterns, and they are the key thing when you talk about structural integrity of a kinetic chain. Now, what happens? Let's look at our head. It weighs around 5 kilos to 7 kilos. And many of us have a habit of keeping our phones like this and talking. Altered. Now, there's a deviation of your shoulder. And when that happens, you slouch. And your chest, expansion reduces. Your chest muscles becomes tighter, your upper back, your lats becomes weaker. And there's a posture, if you look at this side here, your hip also deviates and your knee also gets strained. So just by your neck wrong movement, you can end up having a tight calf, or just by a tight calf, you can also end up having a low back pain or upper back pain. You need to look at the contralateral sides when you talk about the postural distortion pattern. So I'll show you a few more slides of this postural distortion pattern images, which will allow you to get a better idea. So let's look at some common postural dysfunction. Now, this is one of the most common thing I see at my gyms with clients who are overweight or obese. They come not just with a high pelvic, tilt, anterior pelvic tilt. They also come with a lumbar arch, high lumbar arch. So when this happens, the increased lumbar lordosis and an anterior pelvic tilt, you have this sort of muscles shortened, and you have one set of muscles lengthened. So mostly the prime movers are the one which gets into a shortening or tightening, and the opposite muscles get into a lengthening, depending upon which movement you are doing. So for example, if iliopsoas is shortened, your gluteus maximus gets into lengthen. If your rectus spinae is shorter, your transverse abdominis gets lengthened. The common injuries, what you would see here, is hamstring strain, anterior knee pain, on low back pain. So when a client comes to us with this kind of issues, it is very important we do a postural analysis, not just dynamic, but also static. Because in gyms, we focus a lot on dynamic. We don't go on postural. Most of the trainers don't go on, static postural analysis. And that's where they miss on these kind of postural distortion pattern. And when they actually go for workout, injuries tends to happen. So in lumbo-pelvic hip postural distortion, you look for increased lumbar lordosis and an anterior pelvic tilt, and these sets of muscles which are tightened and lengthened. The next one is upper extremity postural distortion pattern, and this you would see common among people who work with system a lot, sit in front of a system like computer software people. So when we visit various corporates for ergonomic sessions, and we tend to look at the system, the height of the system is at a different space, and they slouch in front. So it's basically in a forward head posture. And what it leads to, it could also lead to a rotator cuff injuries. Okay, it could lead to shoulder instability. It will lead to biceps tendinitis. It leads to headaches because your upper trapezius are tight. So this pattern is common in people who sit a lot or who develop overload from unidimensional training model. Remember what I told earlier about unilateral planar, uniplanar movement, where you work on one direction itself. So that could also lead to such upper extremity postural distortion. where you're not working in many directions. Please remember one thing, that when we work with functional movement, which is multiplanar, your one plane will be dominant, but mean that the other two planes, for example, if sagittal is dominant, the frontal and transverse is not working. They also work to stabilize it. So all three work together to give a proper movement. But in case of uniplanar movement, that doesn't happen, and that can lead to such upper extremity or any other extremity postural distortion. So you can look at the posture where the red arrow marks are there. Those are the things when you look at shoulders being slouched slightly, and because of that upper rotator, I initially tell them to avoid any overhead workouts. So if you are working with lat pull down, I avoid them the overhead workouts. Instead of that, you do a seated rowing. So you avoid overhead push workouts. Shoulder initially until you work with the injured muscle or the injured part or the joint. So here again, when you talk about any distortional pattern, you need to understand which muscles, that a muscle, joint, and neural pathway. So if muscles are affected, the joint is going to be affected, mainly the joint, which is the main mover, and also the neural pathway to the muscles, corresponding muscles are getting affected. So that leads to a whole or functional extremity posture, excessive foot pronation. Like if you have, most of you have treated flat foot. I had many clients, like athletes, especially who are swimmers. Most of the swimmers, if you look at it, they are very good at it, will have high flat foot. Okay. Now it helps them as works as a swimming, but when you call them to the ground and do a ground training, tell them to run, most of them complain and they walk knee pain, mostly on the medial side, and they walk or run with a pronated feet. And that would put a lot of load on the medial side, because the weight is coming and the load is coming from the lateral as well. So injury on the medial side can happen, increased foot pronation, and knee can collapse while squatting or lunging and sit up. I've had these issues with many experienced senior swimmers who have been swimming for a very long time, but they were not checking their foot. So one of the main assessment which you have to do when the clients come to your gym or your center is to also look at their foot, because any functional movement, the base of support is the ankle. If your ankle is stabilized, the whole foundation will be strong. So if your ankles are not good enough, then it could lead to various contralateral problems. You end up having pain even up to your neck. So the common injuries with lower extremity postural distortions are plantar fasciitis, posterior tibialis tendinitis, anterior knee pain, and even low back pain. So again, like I said, how does kinetic chain and exercise work? If the ankle is not in neutral alignment, like I told you earlier, it negatively impacts the kinetic chain, making the entire body suffer. It leads to reduced performance, increased pain, and soft tissue. So if a client is coming to you, it is very important to have from every angle, have a look at their kinetic chain alignment. It is not just looking at them, making them do push-ups and see if they have a strength, making them do plank and see if they have core strength. You need to look at also this postural distortion patterns and see if any of those are there, and where the loading and where the alignment is getting affected. And most of them, it will be in the ankle region. And from there only it starts, mainly for athletes at least. So as a corrective exercise specialist, you need to look for kinetic chain unalignment. If you remember the what you call the vicious injury cycle, your job is to prevent that vicious injury cycle. The compensatory movement or abnormal movement which happens are the result of movement dysfunction. When the body is unbalanced, when certain muscles or joints are overutilized. Again, I come back to kinetic chain again. You have muscle, you have joints, you have a neural pathway. If any one thing gets affected, if a body is unbalanced, your posture is unbalanced, the muscle and neural pathway will get overloaded, and that could lead to the chain unalignment. And that could lead to a movement dysfunction, and that could lead to a cumulative injury cycle. So as a corrective exercise specialist, you need to look at this kinetic chain alignment, and that's only when you can avoid such or reduce the chances of such injuries. Now, before going into the screening, I just wanted, I love this topic, so I just thought I'll share it with you. Changes in resistance movement arm. So how does a biomechanic plays a role in workout plan? And this is something I share with all my bodybuilders, and they have got brilliant results. So look at many of you work out, you lift weight, and many of you tend to lift, for example, let's look at biceps. You lift fully. What it tends to do is people think that only when you do full range of motion, your biceps will increase in size. But when you look at this resistive, torque, which is FW, and what happens is at the end, at 90 degrees, it is at a maximum load. It is hardest. But when what people tend to do when people work out is they lift fully and they bring it up to as close as possible. What happens is that is your biceps muscle takes the load only at 65% only. The rest of the load goes to coracobrachialis. So if your focus is to work only on your biceps, your movement arm needs to be, at 90 degrees or just below. What we also do as an exercise specialist is we train a lot in the negative range, the below range. Because remember one thing, when we talk about any movement, you have, concentric and eccentric. We tend to focus a lot on concentric movement, but not much on eccentric movement. But it's not just about how we lift the weight. It is mainly about how we bring it down, the eccentric, because maximum force production happens in eccentric phase of a movement. So you cannot just stand here and throw a ball at full range of movement. You need to have an eccentric. From there only you need to, even if you want to jump or dive into something, you need to go down and then get those explosive movements in place. Only when you, so that is why if you want to increase your power, if you want to increase your strength, it is very important to focus on the eccentric phase of the movement, because that's what trains your muscle much more better and brings out the best of the ability. Now let's look at the functional movements and screening. Coming back to our main topic, why focus on functional movement pattern? People might ask you why we should do functional movement patterns, because many of the bodybuilders, they say we have been doing well, we haven't got injured now, so that doesn't mean that you won't be having in future. It is always better to be safe than sorry. It is always better to train yourself in such a way that you develop high level of core strength, neuromuscular control, dynamic flexibility, and functional strength, because that's what you utilize when you work on functional movement patterns. Because functional activity occurs in all three planes, like I told you, sagittal, frontal, and transverse. However, one activity may be one plane dominant. So for example, when you walk, it is a sagittal plane dominance, but other two movements may also be needed to work to provide you stability and efficiency. So all the movements have to work in tandem. So it's all about how you do. So if I do biceps flexion, it's a sagittal plane, right? So biceps work, but if there is no frontal stability or there is no transverse stability, the way I stand, then the movement, my movement, the biceps movement will not be working it to its best efficiency. So for an exercise to work efficiently, for a movement to work efficiently, even though one plane might be dominant, the other two planes should also work in tandem. So it is important as a trainer to train the other muscles, corresponding muscles, which are giving you stability in the other planes. Because most of the exercises are sagittal plane dominant and concentrate mostly on force production. There need to be a focus on other planes also, not just in one plane. Just because most of the exercises are sagittal plane dominant, you can't just work on one plane and just leave it, because your kinesthetic awareness, your efficiency of the movement reduces if you do uniplanar movement. And that's what leads to injuries over a period of time. So the focus has to be on multiplanar exercises. Now, let's look at FMS. FMS is otherwise known as functional movement screening. They are the series of movement designed to evaluate stability as well as mobility. Basically, it means you evaluate a kinetic chain during those assessments. Again, kinetic chain means muscular, articular surface, your joints, as well as the neural pathway. You, in this functional screening movement, you use positions that are weaker and imbalanced. You need to look for those positions. So you basically start challenging people. You basically start challenging individual when they start doing the movement, because your ultimate goal is to identify individuals or athletes at increased risk of injury, and you need to work around them. So what are those tests? So if you look at it, these are the primary 7 tests you're going to do when you work on functional movement screening. The first one is for athletes, we usually do deep squat. For general public, we can do squat. Okay, and then mostly when we talk about squat, it is an overhead squat you look for, and at each of these movements, you need to look for kinetic chain alignment. You need to look for your muscular, your prime movers, your antagonist. You need to look at joints, whether they are aligned properly, whether balance is there, core support is there, neural pathway is there properly or not. Then the next one is hurdle path. A small hurdle, you walk over it without touching the hurdle and see whether you balance. So you go from a single leg. You have a transitional movement happening over there. The inline lunge. Basically, when you do lunge, your one leg will be behind. They are not correspondingly closer. But in this test, you need to keep one behind each other and see whether the body maintains the balance or not. And your shoulder mobility, then straight leg raise, trunk stability push-ups. Basically, what for people you can do is, people who are not able to do push-ups, you can do a core stability in full core in a plank movement, or rotatory stability. In rotatory stability, you can also put them in all fours, and then you can work on lifting on one side of the movement and see whether there is a rotatory movement which is happening or not. So I see there is a message here. Let me see. All right. So if you have any queries, I will answer them at the end of this session. So that will give an idea for others also to get, listen to that as well. I hope you got an idea. These are the 7 functional movements which you're going to work on: squats, hurdle steps, inline lunges, shoulder mobility, straight leg raise, trunk stability and push-ups, and rotatory stability. In rotatory stability, you need to do both sides and see which side is more dominant. You can give you an idea. If one side raise is causing more rotation than the other side raise, then you will know which side of the muscles are affected accordingly. Now, how do you screen them? How do you rate this screening? The scoring of functional movement screening is, if you are able to do all this task, you get 3 points. The maximum score is 21 points. So if you are unable to do task with compensation, like you're not, there is an abnormal movement which is happening, that means your kinetic chain is affected. That means one of the muscles or the joints or even the neural pathway is affected. That means there is certain things which you need to work for. Then you give the 2 points. And next is, when you get 1 point is only when you're not able to complete the task, full range of motion. And if you are not able to do the movement and you have pain during the test, you have 0. So what you need to do is look for the asymmetry or look for the kinetic chain unalignment, where the dysfunction is there in the kinetic chain, in the muscle, in the articular surface, or even in the neural pathway. And that will give you an idea in the scoring. Now, a comprehensive and integrated performance profile or a kinetic chain assessment, it includes 3 parts. One is a static assessment, transitional assessment, and dynamic assessment. Static assessment, we spoke about, you look at the posture, you look at the various postural distortion patterns like upper extremity, your lumbopelvic distortion pattern, and a lower extremity distortion pattern. And you look at that, in that you will find the muscle length imbalance, because these muscle length imbalance are what causing the injury over a period of time. Now, when you look at transitional assessment, you have overhead squat test. Okay, in this overhead squat test, you start from lower to upper and see at each change in movement how the client is changing. If there is a rotatory movement happening, is there a dominance of one side, or is it going smoothly? If there is a tilting on one side or not, you look at all those things. And then you do a single leg squat test, and there is a single leg balance expression test. So that will give you an idea during the transitional phase how it is working. So again, let me go back here. There's something with the slides. All right. Transitional assessment, when you look at overhead squat test, again, I repeat, single leg and single leg balance, because when you do single leg balance, you will try to assess your kinesthetic awareness of the client, because during a movement, especially for athletes, having that kinesthetic awareness is very, very important. Now, the third assessment, what you do is the dynamic assessment, which are mainly sports specific, agility test, and gait test. I think you guys would have attended the first seminar by Himanshu. He said that he spoke about gait analysis. So those are the tests which you're going to do, and reaction time test as well, for mainly for skill test. When you come to dynamic assessments, most bar gait analysis are skill assessments. So they are mainly for athletes and other individuals. It doesn't mean that you can't do it for regular individuals, people who don't play sports, but you need to modify it as per their activities. See, your assessment or your exercise plan has to be smart. That means it has to be specific, it has, as well it has to be a timeline guided, because we as Indians better when we are having a timeline, right? So it all has to be smart. Your planning has to be smart, your assessment has to be smart. Now, during exercise selection, how do you design selection? You need to see that they are proprioceptively rich. That means they have a kinesthetic awareness involved in that. The you how to say it, the core is challenged basically. The athletes or the individual's core is challenged. It's safe. It's challenging, because only when you're challenged, the kinesthetic chain will be coming into load. If you're maintaining only one position during an activity, you will not be able to find out if there is any distortion pattern happening in the kinetic chain. You need to stress multiple planes again. Cannot work on uniplanar movement. There are certain exercises where, for example, you do front raise and side raise. They are multiplanar movement. But what I suggest is try to do a combo exercise like front and side together. So you work on all those two movement planes together rather than focusing on one movement only. You need to focus on integrated exercise plan, where you're not just doing one component of fitness or one muscle, you're working on multiple muscles at a time. Because when you talk about a function or an activity, the whole movement, it's always about, it's never a single movement. It is a multi-joint activity. Functional training is always about multi-joint activity. So like I said, it should be specific and you need to progress it. I will talk more about progressive at a later stage. So this is a training module. This is where the physios will come into place. There are multiple stages of training module. First module is known as a conditioning and corrective phase. Second module is known as a strengthening phase. The third is muscle enhancement phase, and the fourth is power phase. Now, as an athlete, you focus mostly on the muscle enhancement and the power. That is where we as a one will come into place, or that is where we need to train our trainers into. Because corrective phase training or corrective exercise training focuses on muscle imbalance, reconditioning the injuries, preparing the body for training, preventing training overload, enhancing adaptation, basically improving your kinesthetic awareness, and it improves your body work capacity. Earlier in the starting of my session, I spoke about structural efficiency and functional efficiency. So in a corrective exercise training, you need to focus on the structural efficiency of the individual, which will lead to the functional efficiency of the individual. So that in turn will lead to integrated stabilization training, which improves your neuromuscular efficiency, which in simpler terms means focus on the core strength, but not just on the static core strength. You need to focus also on a dynamic stabilization, because we are a moving person. We move in our day-to-day activities. We don't stay at one place. So when we move, our center of gravity shifts its base of support. And if we don't have our neuromuscular efficiency there, it could lead to dysfunction or movement dysfunction, and that could lead to instability. And so a physio or a corrective exercise specialist role is mainly in this conditioning and corrective phase, where we focus on the imbalances. So again, if you correlate it, we always come down to these three things: muscle, articular surface, and neural pathway, basically a kinetic chain alignment. So any workout when you do, you focus on those three things. And so if you want to, your goal is to get more stronger and improving your strength, then you go into a stabilization equivalent strength, where you focus on the muscle endurance and strength improvement. Endurance is basically stamina, the ability of an individual to take, do an activity over a longer period of time, taking a load, less weight, higher repetition. Okay, so that's what is focusing on that. So again, I would repeat, the conditioning and corrective phase is the main thing, where there are specialists now in all over world. They are trained certification courses, or also they are now, they call themselves as corrective exercise specialist or corrective exercise prescription specialist, where your job when a client comes to the gym or in your clinic is to analyze the kinetic chain and correct these imbalances, because you have to cut down the vicious injury cycle. That's the key thing. That's your main goal. Now, if you look at it, functional enhancement, this is where you start pumping weights. Here you work around 80% of your 1 RM. We all remember our Dina Gardner, where we studied about, DeLorme's theory. DeLorme is the father of strength training. I mean, what he did in 1920s, we are still following it, because that is amazing what he did at 10 RM. 10 RM is the key for it. So if somebody is trying to improve their strength, we need to focus on 10 to 12 repetition around 3 sets. That is the key thing which we focus on muscle enhancement. But what is the weight you lifted here is basically on how you say 80 to 90% of your 1 RM. So if your 1 RM is 100 kilos, you're lifting around 80 to 90 kilos. But when you come down to power phase, here mostly about elastic mode. You're working on neuromuscular efficiency along with high power strength, like for boxers, weightlifters, where you have to express your power very fast. How do you define power? Power is nothing but force into velocity, right? So if I have to move certain object from here to there at a certain pace and certain direction, that's what power is all about. So when you think about power, think about weightlifter and boxers. So that's where the neuromuscular efficiency has to come at a high production phase. It's not just producing power, you need to do it at a faster pace, especially for athletes. So power phase, we usually don't train for general public, we keep it for skill training. And then maximal power training is where we call also them as power endurance. It's not necessary to throw a javelin or a discus or a shot put once. You need to be able to throw next rep at the same efficiency or even higher efficiency. And that is what is needed in this stage. So again, before I go to the next slide, we start with conditioning phase, we start with strengthening phase, we start with muscle enhancement, which is also known as hypertrophy phase, and then we start with powers phase. So how do we progress this training? How to progress functional training? When you're training your lower extremity, you start with both leg training, and then you start with a staggered stand, then you start with single leg stand, and then you do both leg on unstable surface and single leg on unstable surface. Now what it does in unstable surface is like a wobble board or a core board or a Bosu ball. So these unstable surface will start working on your kinesthetic awareness, will start creating challenges for you. So your kinesthetic or your kinetic chain starts getting loaded. So if you're really strong, your muscle and your joint and neural pathway will work in tandem to give you the balance. Supposedly, if you are not able to maintain your balance, that means one of those pathway, either the neural or the articular surface or the muscle, is weaker for you. And that's what you need to focus on. So the unstable surface training, we usually don't go beginning. We initially focus on improving a strength or a muscle imbalances, reducing muscle imbalances into both leg or staggered stand, where you don't stand in the same, you have uneven surfaces as well, and single leg, which improves your proprioception as well. Now coming down to upper extremity training. So if you're working on your upper body, you start with both arm first, then start with alternative. I have seen many people training with alternative arm. Now, if you are a beginner, it is not advised to train alternate arm because you will not be able to fire those muscles. So when I talk about firing, again, it comes down to kinetic chain. Each muscle fiber has the nerve attachments, and how the muscle fires, the nerve fires, that's how the contraction of muscle happens. So you will not be a beginner client will not be able to focus individually when you do alternatively. So it is therefore advised to focus both arms first, then alternative arms, then single arm workout. That is how the progression of upper extremity training. Then you go into stabilization training, core stabilization. That is, most of you work with core stability. Now again, here you need to focus both static core stability as well as dynamic core stability. Usually when it comes to gym setup or in a fitness center, we do a lot of dynamic stability, but we also advise static core stability for people who are having issues or they have come back from an injury. So they are coming for a rehab, or just they finish their rehab and come to the gym. Their muscle strength will not be up to the level to do that movement. So in isometric or static stabilization workouts has to be, or we advise them for rehab cases where the muscle firing happens much more, the muscle activation happens much more, and then that's how you enhance the muscle strength of an individual. So that is your progression. Now, this is something which I have designed for people to understand very. So you start, if you look at the arrow, it goes from lower to upper. The lower you have low load, high repetition, and up as you go up, your load increases and the repetition comes down. So lower level, you work on your general fitness, as I said, conditioning and corrective exercise period, where you work on stability and endurance, and then you come into general fitness, where you add things like HIIT. Many of you have worked with HIIT. Many of you have used the HIIT training. So HIIT is nothing but high intensity interval training. Those are skill training. Yes, you can modify it for general public, and you can, one of the most popular workout for HIIT, which is modified for general public, which I've also used for my clients, is known as metabolic training. It's a modification from HIIT, high intensity interval training. And that's the in thing right now. For people, if you want to work with hypothyroid clients, people who wear hormonal imbalance clients, where you can't give high intensity weight training because it could cause testosterone level to fluctuate. So in such cases also you work on these metabolic training. And the last is the skill training. So you go from down to up, you cannot go from skill to down. You cannot directly start a skill training because that could lead to kinetic chain alignment, or simply it could lead to injury. Now, the functional movement summary, if you look at it, whenever somebody is having a postural distortion or a postural issue, you need to understand there are two systems in place. One is a movement system and stability system. As the name suggests, the movement system are mainly responsible for the movement, and stability system are mainly responsible for the stability of that movement. And they have to work in tandem to create the movement, efficient movement. Now, whenever there's a postural issue, the movement system tend to go for tightness, and the stability system, your stability muscle, your core muscle, tend to go for weakness. So as a physio or a corrective exercise specialist, you need to diagnose which of these postural issues, because if you can find out whichever muscle is tight, you can work around that, and whichever core muscles are weaker, you work around that, you can correct their posture accordingly. It's all about diagnosis. It's all about knowing your muscles and working around that. There is no two ways about it. It's not rocket science as well, but it's easier said than done, because many of the trainers working in the gyms, mainly, if you look at them, they don't have the knowledge of biomechanics or anatomical knowledge. That's what we try to improve them. That's where I think the best trainers in fitness industries are the physios. They can be, because they have the foundation of biomechanics as well as anatomy. So you work on this system, work on the movement system to reduce tightness, work on the stability system to reduce weakness, and you get your proper movement. As simple as that. Well, not, I mean, you need to work further on that. The improvement, your chain, your weight, the way you load, everything comes into place. But a kinetic chain alignment comes where movement and stability comes into play. When we speak about kinetic chain alignment, or when we speak about kinetic chain, it is all about movement system and stability system. So what is your goal when why somebody needs to do functional training? Because you want to reduce the chances of injury. It develops optimal level of functional strength and stabilization. You focus, even for bodybuilders, even for athletes, I have pushed people to do, functional training more than unilateral, because I have had a 57-year-old client who last year went to LA, Los Angeles, and competed in a bodybuilding competition, and he won a gold medal in bodybuilding as well as sports physics. And he was given the best symmetrical, because we use the concepts of kinetic chain alignment, we use the concept of functional training into bodybuilding, and that could lead to proper symmetrical body. Because the key thing is to have symmetrical. When you have a symmetrical body, that means your prime movers and antagonists both are worked, and the synergist as well, both are worked, all are worked together. That's when it leads to a proper, efficient, functional movement. The question you need to ask yourself before starting training is my workout dynamic or static? And why? Why it should be dynamic, why it should be static? Because it depends upon your goal, it depends upon your weaknesses, it depends upon your efficiency, or rather the inefficiency of your movement as well. Is it multiplanar? Is it proprioceptively enriched? Are you able to focus? So progression of training will come at a later stage as you improve upon the client. Is it systematic? Because again, symmetrical, having a systematic plan is very important to avoid injury. Is it progressive? Again, what I spoke about, you can't jump from both leg to single leg. You need to have both legs, staggered stand, and then you go to a single leg. There should be a progression. there is a reason why we have given the progression, because that reduces the incidence of injury and your results gaining is much more faster. Is it activity specific? No need to train. There's no use training a homemaker to be a discus thrower. There's no need to train a weightlifter as a marathon runner. Your goal has to be specific. Your functional training has to be specific to their goal and their activity. And does the trainer have the knowledge of functional anatomy and science? Because it's not just, see, training is not just about running on a treadmill and lifting weight. It's a whole together a science behind it. A per individual needs to understand when a client is walking on a
Hello, hello, Ramakrishnan sir. Hello, hello, Ramakrishnan sir. Sir, you are not audible. Your video is freezed.